A lyric analysis, Taylor Swift. I hate it here. Why? There is a verse in I Hate It Here by Taylor Swift that grinds my freaking gears. I love Taylor and her music. I would even say I enjoy the song with this strange lyric. But that doesn't mean that the verse I'm analysing isn't a bit off-putting and frankly bad. I'm a Swiftie, but I'm not afraid to clown on Taylor and her rare poor writing choices from time to time. In this video essay, I will present the interesting verse, how the audience interpreted and reacted to this, and then discuss in detail why Taylor needs to rethink what she said. I intend on educating in this presentation and will provide links to my sources in the description. Verse 2. My friends used to play a game where we would pick a decade we wished we could live in instead of this. I'd say the 1830s but without all the racists. And getting married off for the highest bid. Everyone would look down because it wasn't fun now. Seems like it was never even fun back then. Nostalgia is a mind's trick. If I'd been there, I'd hate it. It was freezing in the palace. Itef? That does not sound fun. This lyric was very unnecessary. The public. The mind of Taylor Swift. I understand hating this generation, but oh my God, it is so much better than the 1830s. What is the appeal? Getting married off to the highest bidder. That sounds god-awful to me, but go off queens. To each their own. She does mention that it may seem fun, but it probably wasn't, and she'd be right, and blames her wanting to live in a horrid time on nostalgia. I understand this and agree that nostalgia is tricky, but that doesn't change the fact that this verse is a bit strange, unnecessary, and there is a much better way to say nostalgia can be manipulative in a sense. Why would you bring up racism in this song? There is no point, just be normal anyways. Love you, Tay-Tay. I assume Taylor is driven to this era of time due to the aesthetic. A lot of people look at these times and the style and think it may be visually appealing, even with all the bigotry happening behind the scenes of simple images or ideas. She also mentioned getting married off to the highest bidder as the reason she would want to live in this period of time. I will be observing both the idea of the 1830s aesthetic and marriage auctions and discuss them. Let's discuss Western fashion in the 1830s. When it comes to aesthetics, most minds drift off to how people were dressed. A lot of fashion was focused on the shoulders and the hips and broadening them. Women's sleeves were much larger compared to previous decades, and they had elaborate hairstyles plus hats. During the final months of the 1830s, photography was introduced. The first images of human beings were captured, along with their fashion. It was common for little girls to wear white dresses with coloured aprons. Women tended to wear white to seem pure, which I feel contradicts TTPD. Romanticism was a big focus in this era, especially with fashion. Neck ruffs were trendy during this time as well. New dress fabrics were introduced during this time, plus bright floral colours and patterns on a light background were increasing in popularity. Rich colour trends were strong in the beginning of this decade but started to fade. I find this intriguing as Taylor's theme for this album is very black and white, straying away from rich colours. Dark outlines on printed designs were removed due to new technology, and the colour green was prominent in the fashion industry. Stripes were in style as well. Men's and women's fashion focused on broad shoulders and a tiny waist. Twinks? In women's fashion, the lower waist was emphasised upon with corsets restricting the waist and large skirts. Simple stiff fabrics were common, and long sleeves would be cuffed at the wrist. Lace would typically drape over their shoulders on their day dresses. Wide belts helped women's waists look smaller in their gowns with wide necklines. Women often wore mid-length gloves. Women wore dresses all the freaking time. Sounds awful. And their morning dresses had high necklines. Uncomfy. Ladies parted their hair down the middle, something Taylor does not do often. Women would have elaborate curls, loops and knots. Braids and heavily decorated bonnets were in style. Women would put combs, ribbons, flowers, plus jewels in their hair. If a woman wanted a jacket, it would have a high neck and a tight waist with the huge sleeves. Women would wear skirts and tall top hats with their jackets. In the evening, women would wear gowns made of velvet or satin with fur trim. Animal cruelty, bow! Women often wore slippers made of leather in the daytime and satin slippers in the evening. Low boots were also common. In the 18th century, there was a practice in England called wife selling. A man would publicly auction off his wife to the highest bidder to leave his unhappy marriage. This is what was really going on, not the romanticized idea of being mailed off to a handsome man who loved you so much to spend millions on you. The wives were laughed at and mocked in reality.
Racism, obviously, but what if there were no racists like Taylor wants? Child labor was still very prevalent. Taylor wouldn't have been allowed to vote, women couldn't vote, being gay was criminalized and worker rights had yet to be established, so working conditions were awful. Maybe for a rich singer like her she'd be fine, but still probably not fun. Taylor, I think you would hate it here too. Taylor must know little about the 1830s. It's an odd lyric, but put into context I believe it works. I still hate it though. She explains in the verse how dangerous it is to romanticize the past. Thanks for watching and sorry this was lame and boring and all GTS my voice is gone okay and I'm on vacation this is on a scuff setup because I wanted to get the video out okay bye love you.